So I wanted to start by talking about healthcare financialization in general, how it's promoted through development, the institution that promote it, in particular the IFC, and I will talk a little bit also about blended finance, which is a form of financialization, and how it applies in health and its consequences. So just to be on the same page, I wanted to introduce the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, which is the private sector arm of the World Bank. As such, the IFC has the role of fostering private sector development by investing and technical advice. And it has an active portfolio in health, which has been growing in the last few years, especially since 2020, for obvious reasons. And but the IFC doesn't just invest in the health sector; it also brings in private finance into the health sector, into development, through a process that I call development financialization. The narrative is very simple. So there are governments that don't have money to pursue the development goals, like providing healthcare to everyone, providing education, lowering the CO2 emissions, etc. And on the other hand, there are private investors that are seeking for chances to invest their money and to get financial returns. So what the IFC and the other financial institutions do is to turn development projects into financial assets. So bonds, loans, equity firms, where private investors can invest, can put their money and get a financial return. So for me, financialization is really this. It's the generation of financial assets through development assistance. This can be done in various ways. Here I have some examples. Public-private partnerships, which Maria Jose will describe later, which are basically private companies that belong to investors and are contracted by governments through the generation of development impact bonds that also generate large financial returns for investors. By bringing in more and more investment funds, equity funds, which then will invest in development and in healthcare in this case, and through blended finance, which is the one of the latest creature of financialization. And it's basically means the de-risking, the use of development finance to de-risk private investment. So the IFC intervenes in many of these areas. For example, it provides advisory services to governments who want to set up public-private partnerships, helping them with the contracts, with the tendering process. It invests monies, it buys share into equity funds that then invest in the health sector, and it uses its technical and financial capacity to set up blended finance facilities. So let's talk a little bit about blended finance and what it is. So as I mentioned before, blended finance is the use of development finance to de-risk private investments. Development finance is normally directed to governments to provide public services like healthcare, education, which is redirected through various mechanisms, in this case, in the case of the ISC, to the private sector windows, into de-risking private sector investment. So basically, the story is very similar. We have private financial investors who want to invest in health and healthcare facilities, private hospitals that need financing. But in low and middle income countries, investments are perceived as very risky. So private investors won't invest. And what the IFC aims to do through blended finance is to provide guarantees to investors. So if the companies cannot repay the loans, goes bankrupt, this blended finance will absorb the losses or the majority of the losses. In this way, private investors can be confident in investing in healthcare companies, so the private healthcare sector can grow. To make it a bit more practical, I wanted to talk about the first example of blended finance in health, which is the Africa Medical Equipment Facility, which was set up first in Kenya, and now it's being set up in Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire, and the idea is to expand it into as many African countries as possible. This financing facility was created in 2021 since as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's the first blended finance facility in the health sector. So the idea behind this was that a lot of private healthcare providers, especially small healthcare providers, don't have enough equipment to buy medical to serve the patients, and they also don't have access to financing to purchase the medical equipment. So the idea is behind this facility was to bring together local banks, private healthcare providers, and manufacturers of medical equipment, and there is the loans from the banks to the private providers who can then purchase medical equipment. And the idea, because we are talking about the development finance, is to support local manufacturers and to support small healthcare centers that, despite being private, are, according to the narrative of the World Bank, are the hospitals that take care of even of low-income groups and serve poor population. And I want to put emphasis on that because it went exactly the other way around. So the needs for these blended finance facilities is to make the loans attractive for private investors. This means that the loans need to be sufficiently large. There are high technical requirements in terms of financial planning, in terms of technical capacity, also of the healthcare workers. So this means that these loans, in order to be attractive, they needed to be for expensive equipment. They couldn't be for very cheap equipment, which is what is mostly produced by local manufacturers. So we are talking about MRI, CT machines, and even more advanced technology. And also it required sufficient returns on investments, which meant high interest rates. All these meant that basically the companies that in the end had access to the services of these facilities were only large private hospitals serving high-income population. Local manufacturers were not eligible for the services of this facility, and the facility only involved manufacturers from the US and Europe. So very little loans were disbursed, and only to high-end private hospitals. The purpose of this facility was completely turned upside down, and it ended up only financing private large hospitals to buy equipment from companies like Philips and General Electric, so not actually helping local manufacturers, but actually supporting the competition, so to say. Basically, what we are seeing here is that financialization is being actively pushed by development institutions, but rather than addressing development gaps, rather than bringing in additional resources to support development, we have a system that is set up to create opportunities for investors to get a financial return. And what I want to stress is that this is an increasing trend. I mean, we have seen more and more financialization being used to address the finance gap in development.